welcome. Season 5, episode 22 of the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast
for the sports collector.
I'm Jason.
I'm Gary.
And we have got a lot of news to jump into right away. We've got record numbers. We've got eBay changing things up, maybe for the seller's benefit, which is definitely not a story we've run in the history
of eBay
of the pod. Topps Chrome has a release, but it's missing someone very important this year.
Very important.
And then, as you've all heard, unless you've been under a rock, these rookie royalty boxes, topic of a lot of controversy, conversation, they dropped, people bought them, and they're selling the cards. We want to jump into all that and more today on this episode. How you feeling? You ready?
I'm ready. It was
like I got a collar on and everything. I'm all dressed up for the occasion.
Well, our schedule got thrown off a little bit this weekend because we had a Sunday show.
Yeah.
And so when you have a Sunday show, Monday just becomes crazy. Why don't we start there since we're talking about how we're feeling? Card Fest, Grove City Card Fest was this weekend. Yep. I think eventually it's called Columbus Card Fest, but the show was spectacular. Yeah. We told you guys about it last week. The same folks who promote Ship Shawana, B Sports, Brad Beeman and his team, and the Card Collector 2 team and Ryan do this show. And it was nuts.
It was nonstop.
All day long.
Crowded. At one point in the day, I was like, man, I'm starting to get a little hungry. You're like, bro, it's 3:00 already.
Yeah.
Like
the day was gone.
It was nonstop. I went to look for some stuff with one of the dealers for some stuff for Whatnot for us. And as I was doing that, I realized it was starting to get flooded. So I had to hurry back to the table early on. And then there was no pause. There was no break. Neither you or I even had a restroom break. Like it was nonstop.
At one point, I was so thirsty. And gosh, maybe you'll remember the name of the folks. Loyal podcast listener. He and his family came over and talked to us for a little while, and they heard me say something about how thirsty I was.
Oh, and shout out! He's on TikTok. Vendetta out of Mansfield.
Okay,
and
there
family.
It is. Okay, and they went and got us a couple bottles of water.
Awesome.
It was so sweet.
His
daughter did. It was awesome, and I desperately needed. But on the way home from the show, I stopped at the gas station. I got 2 32-ounce body armors, and they were gone before I got home. I love body armor.
It's juicy juice.
No, they make a new one called Body Armor Chill.
They taste like juicy
No,
juice.
they're really good. I'm a fan.
Okay. Well, he's already one slushie in this morning, by the way. It is not the afternoon, and he had a 32-ounce big boy Slurpee on the way in.
I needed some caffeine.
I would agree. Card Fest is fantastic. I don't think it's going to get any smaller.
No.
Columbus is going to be interesting. We've talked about this before. It's a really good location and great sized town for a really large card show, but the facility becomes the issue in the city. So you can scale it, but at some point there's only so many spaces at size for something much larger than that are affordable to the point where you could do something like a card show. Sure. I hope we see it soon. I mean, we're going to be following it. We're big supporters of it. We love it, the way that they put that together. It's so well promoted. Great show business-wise, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And once again, thank you to all you that walked up and said, hey, that you appreciate the pod.
I have one other thing about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Brad will post this. If you were at the show and you bought a green Bowman First JJ Weatherholt from me, you left a purple Luke Adams auto Bowman First sitting on the table. I turned it into Brad. He will be posting it to the Lost and Found. Yeah. If you don't claim the card, he will sell it, and the proceeds will get donated to the kids scavenger hunt that they do at these shows. But I want to make sure that I pointed that out. If you bought that green JJ Weatherholt, you got a Luke Adams sitting with Brad Beeman.
You left it there, and I turned it into $100.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. I just turned it in.
Yeah.
Want to make sure I pointed that out.
It wasn't him. He didn't steal it.
Nope.
Gary's
you just
not
left it laying on the table.
All right. Before we jump into more of the news, real quick, tonight, if you're watching this the day of the episode, we have another 10 slabs we're giving away for buyers. I'm gonna vent for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about this.
And I'll pick out which ones we're doing.
If you're not aware of it, we had a troll on YouTube talk about our illegal giveaways because we said that we were doing buyer giveaways. It is not federally legal to technically do a buyer's giveaway. Whatnot allows people to fill out forms to keep everything on the up and up. And wouldn't you know it, a Givey Goblin won the biggest hit out of the giveaway. Super frustrating. There's nothing we can do to control that.
It was annoying.
We really want it to be someone that spent even $1 with us to get a $100 slab, but we cannot be in charge of that. So it is what it is. Gary, show a few highlights for what we have coming in this week.
Yeah, so buyers giveaways again for this week on Whatnot. How about another really nice Jahmyr Gibbs tricolor number to 225 in an SGC 9.5. My favorite, I think, not the biggest one, but my favorite. Manny Machado variation PSA 10 rookie. Got a Bryce Young PSA 10 silver debut. And a real sneaky one, probably the most valuable card we're giving away this week. How about the first year Sapphire Dodgers unique color match Ohtani SGC 10? It's like $100 to $120 card. So that'll be the capstone of the night. You like my use of capstone there?
That's good. And then we have one more week where we're still giving away all the slabs from that juice box case we did a review on. So if you've been thinking about it or you said you're going to jump on Whatnot, tonight is the night, 7 o'clock. Also, big announcement, breaking news.
Breaking news.
New graphic. I'm giving you orders for edits, and you can't not do it now.
Got it.
New graphic logo. New banner across the bottom. We are going to be releasing. Many of you have talked to me on TikTok. The biggest issue you have is sourcing. So not only are we going to talk about that today in the value box, but we're going to also be offering midweek low-end lots through what we're calling lunchbox lots. It'll be a midweek Whatnot auction show. Everything we sell is going to be lotted up, so you're able to get into it on value. These are all cards that if they were not part of the ball card show with our Whatnot collection purchases, I would be putting on eBay. So it's going to be legitimate eBay sourcing inventory.
3 and 5 card lots, right?
Yeah, and some of you just don't want to play the buy cards worth $20 at a time game, and you'd be pumped to buy really good like bargain bin stuff in lots. We're going to be doing that on a regular basis starting on the 16th. It'll be a lunchtime show. We're targeting what we say 12 to 2.
Yeah.
Noon to 2 Eastern Standard Time. So the shows are already up on the Whatnot page. Be sure to bookmark those.
Yep.
It'll be a different vibe, a little more laid back. We can get creative with the lots. There may be some that are 2 cards. We may have a 10-card lot. You never know. We'll be mixing that up. So be sure to check that out. Bookmark those. That's a lot of self-promotion on the front end.
That's all right.
Let's jump into the other news. Big news. People are spending money on cards. It's not slowing down.
Yeah, no, we've been telling you guys for probably 2 months now, maybe a little longer, that we are entering a boom cycle in this hobby. And this last month proved it. And this is just eBay, Fanatics Live, Golden, like the reportable platforms.
Yes.
Not even Fanatics Live, just Fanatics auctions. $305.7 million just on those 3 reporting platforms in June. That is the highest sales dollar volume in reportable hobby history. That does not count Whatnot. That does not count TikTok. That does not count Fanatics Live. That does not count eBay Live. It is going crazy. Like you said, we saw it Sunday at the show. It was packed all day long, and it's not slowing down. We are on the front end of this.
Waves of people at the table with cards that they've recently opened, started collecting. Like, I don't know what comp means when you say, hey, where are you valuing this card? Like, so many people brand new to the hobby are rolling in. This is not just a carryover from the COVID boom that
feels
happened.
like 2020.
It's and the market's expanding across the board.
Yeah.
It's not just the high price points. It's not just, we're not even, here's what's wild to me. On all of those platforms, it does not even consider, well, no, it wouldn't, any breaking platform revenue.
No, that's my point. There's no way to do it.
So that's the number without even looking at wax, although I'm sure that wax that's sold on eBay would be considered in that number. But these other platforms that are massive and doing way more money than like your auctions are.
I know there's one channel on Whatnot that does at least just in single sales $1 million a month, and that's Debut.
Yeah,
and there's hundreds of those sellers. Maybe not that volume, but I would say that Whatnot's at least another $40 to $50 million a month.
It's a ton.
Yeah, it's insane.
So all that is to say that the reporting of these sales, this hobby is growing. Fanatics doesn't even have all the big 3 licensing And their goal is just to grow the international collector base. It's not about one product for them. It's not about one sport. They are evangelizing the hobby internationally.
Non-sport, too.
And there are markets that are interested in sports collectibles that don't even have as much access, or shipping is such a barrier for people to buy. So, like, internationally, the market is poised for a massive boom again. We are the opposite of people that are, like, on the hype train when it comes to things in the hobby. Anybody that's listened to this for a minute knows we tend to be more on the pragmatic side. Some would call it negative, right? But you cannot deny when you have the numbers verifying it. And I do think that single sales, verified single sales, paint a broader scope.
Absolutely.
Because in my mind, I could be wrong in some degree on this, in my mind, that has a lot more to do with the collector searching for players than somebody's like, oh, maybe I'll try a breakout, or maybe I'll open a box. It says something to me a little bit more about the collector side of the hobby. So that's great news. If you're somebody that's, been collecting for a couple years and you have a little bit, you have some cards, some of those might see a little bit of a bump over the next few months. This week, as I was listing football, now we're in a little bit of that going into the peak for selling on projection of how a rookie's going to perform. But those $2 to $3 cards are $4, $5, and $6 this week. So especially like over the last 2 weeks, there's a trend of those things moving in that direction. So all of this is really positive. Keep an eye on it. I think what this means is that the COVID boom wasn't just up and down and back to a level plateau on the market. It's continuing to climb. The market cap is continuing to expand and grow. So a lot of implications with that. We're keeping an eye on it. But as those numbers pop up, we can't help but say, yeah, we knew it all along when we decided to sell cards that this was going to happen.
Well,
we didn't.
No, not at all. With that, those numbers, do you think that is why eBay is starting to play around with their way they're doing auctions, which is the next thing we want to talk about?
Let's jump into that. Yeah. So as all this is happening, one thing that is very, very clear is that the live auction platform is here to stay, at least for a while. So much so that eBay has adapted eBay Live. Now, many of you have heard of this, not so sure. You've signed up to be a part of it, never even got an interest email back. eBay is being very selective with who gets to do eBay Live. It's scaling, it's growing. And if you're able to hop in a room, very rarely are there less than 100 people in there, which you mentioned reminds you of early Whatnot.
Yeah, that's how Whatnot was in the early days.
However, this week they announced that they're going to be trying something out. Now, when eBay changes something, they're very slow to do it. A lot of research has gone into it. They kind of slow walk this thing. So at the point where they make an announcement, they're already 100% there, but they're giving people time to get there. The big announcement for eBay, though, they are going to experiment with an extended bidding that will extend the auction 2 minutes if there's a new bid. So
at what time point in the auction does that kick in? Like the last 60 seconds?
The last minute would make sense.
Yeah.
To me, it could be the last 30 seconds. I'm sure they'll try different stuff with that as they roll that out. However, this changes a couple things significantly. For one, the idea of sniping is over.
Yeah, if they start doing that, it's gone.
You're basically custom bidding or hoping that you're catching the auction at a time where literally no one else is paying attention.
And this is something that Golden has done on their premier auctions for a while.
The other thing that's happened is for the first time in a long time, as long as I can remember, eBay is doing something that financially benefits the seller and not necessarily the buyer.
It also financially benefits eBay.
Well, sure, but there's things that they could do on behalf of the seller that would do that all along, and they're not doing it. They're very buyer-focused. But for this, it's going to raise the bottom line. Why does this matter? Why does this matter? Like it or not, 90% of the comps that you're looking up are eBay sales.
Yep.
And if you have the opportunity to extend bidding across the market, this has to raise the comp value everywhere.
Yeah.
Anything interesting could pop off. Think of the of 5s and of 10s that people talk about. I can't believe I let it go away. I thought I had a strong bid. I put in 150 over the last, or 1,000 over the last bid, thinking that I could just go to bed and I knew I had that auction one. I'd have paid another $500 for that card. On some of those big cards, I think you're going to see you're going to see exponentially higher comps on really rare stuff.
Well, yeah, because people that a lot of times what happens in these snipe situations you're talking about is somebody will go in, whether it's a big repack buyer or whatever, and they'll do exactly what you said. They want the card. They know they can make money on it regardless of what they pay for it. So they put in a big number and go to bed. Mm-hmm. Well, now a collector might go, oh, well, I actually want that card. And I don't care. It's of 5, and I know the last one sold for 1,000, but I'm willing to pay 2,500 for it. I got 2 more minutes. I see where the high bid was. And hopefully that person went to bed. I'm over it now.
Yeah. It's going to drive up the comp value on rare stuff. I think even smaller, the lower end stuff could get weird. And then you're reintroducing this bidding war feeling.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're releasing that into the eBay marketplace.
Which hasn't existed for a long time.
That extended bidding is going to be something. Now, you get the notification you've been outbid, but if it's down to the wire, like there's people that have content just on trying to lay a snipe in the last 10 seconds and seeing if they won. That's done. That's over. But it is going to invite more people to keep playing, to get in competition with bidding. So I expect to see comps elevate a little bit. I expect to see the rare stuff really perform a lot better as far as comp value, which to dealers like Gary and I,
it's great.
We're super happy about
and
that.
It's that psychology aspect of it. I see people all the time, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or wherever, complaining about people choosing to overspend on a card on whatnot. This card's only worth $5 and it sold for $15 on whatnot. These people are all idiots. No, it's the psychology of an auction.
Yeah.
In the moment, people become way more concerned with winning than value.
Yeah.
And if that starts to happen on eBay, like you said, it'll just be people paying what they feel like paying for the card, which is what happens on whatnot.
Or you'll have way stronger custom bids.
Yes.
But it's going to be interesting. Like I think like the week of like Bowman draft releases, some of these true low number cards,
going to go nuts.
We could see some dumb numbers on it. Now, here's what will be interesting. Like, and it may not, but can you think like, and I didn't talk about this before, will this have any impact on shill bidding? How is it impacted by extending it out 2 minutes where it could take another hour or 2 hours? Or
Well, I mean, shill bidding's, here's the reality. eBay is where shill bidding happens.
Right.
This will enable shill bidding to be extended. People are still going to shill bid because eBay does not have any functionality that forces the buyer or the bidder to actually pay for the card. Now, you as a seller, I believe, do have the option to click a setting that says require immediate payment.
Right.
So their payment method on charge will be just charged immediately. But most people don't do that.
But it doesn't do anything to stop someone from requesting a cancellation, which could in turn leave you negative feedback, which could, even if your policy's there, if somebody wants out of the card, they can get out.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool if with the extended bidding, they found a way to wrap in the pork on this bill and make everybody do instant payment if they're going to do extended bidding.
I think it would be really great if eBay had policies that are functional for both parties.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I will say this. I do think this is a step in the positive direction for eBay with auctions. I think it's a net positive.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
It'll be interesting to see like a card that stays in that extended bidding for like a day. Like it's going to happen. There'll be some cards that get weird like that. All right, let's keep it moving. I talked too long about that.
That's okay.
Topps Chrome is being released, which everybody loves because we have, the big chase. We've got the on-card auto for the rookies, and more importantly, we have the MVP buyback program, which has been a huge success for Fanatics over the last couple of years. However, this year, Topps left out one important thing.
Blows my mind that they left it out.
What's not in there?
The guy who's given Aaron Judge every bit of a run for his money in the AL MVP race, Cal Raleigh, leading the majors in home runs by not a small margin, doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon.
He also doesn't appear to be on the checklist, right?
Yeah, no, he's not on the checklist from what anybody can see, which is insane.
Okay, so do you know the process? Like, how do they decide who's on the checklist? Like,
I
what
have-
goes into that?
I have no clue, but the idea that a guy who's been a top 5 catcher in baseball for 3 years isn't on the checklist is mind-blowing
In
to
a
me.
market that's highly collectible.
Yeah, we're going to have Connor Wong on the checklist, but not Cal Raleigh.
So let's
Okay.
talk through this. If you're unaware by now, maybe you're new to the hobby, they do an MVP buyback where if you have the AL or NL MVP, and then they have all the base, the different parallels, the different variations, you literally can walk them into your local LCS for credit. Credit starts as low as what, $20?
$20 and as high as 200, I believe.
Depending on what you have. So what that would mean was if Cal and Aaron Judge were both in the checklist, you have 2 chases where you may not get a nice auto, but if you have a Judge and a Cal, you got $40 right there, potentially, right?
Well, only
There's
20.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Let me finish my
Okay.
thought. Potentially $40 in value, like to the resale market. Somebody believes in Cal. Somebody believes in Judge. They could get $20 on them. So those cards might be what, $10, $15 immediately for somebody to buy. So by removing one of those, and it seems to be at this point in the season pretty clear that there's 2 people in the NL that, or in the AL that would be considered for that. 25% of the MLB, the MVP buyback is really non-existent. What does that do to the value of the product that's being released?
I don't think it does anything, and here's why. The Cal Raleigh's a great story this year. Unless Aaron Judge falls off a bridge next week, Cal Raleigh's not winning the MVP. That's why I don't think it's an issue.
He could not stay on the pace that he's on right now and still get MVP.
No, because Aaron Judge is on an even better pace, just not on home runs. But Aaron Judge is going to hit 360 to 380 this year. Cal Raleigh's hitting 275.
360 is insane right now.
Cal Raleigh's on pace to hit 62 or 63 home runs, which is fantastic. But Judge is going to hit 55 with a 360 batting average and 120 RBIs for the Yankees.
Here's the problem I have. When Topps Chrome introduced this MVP buyback program, it came along with a hefty price hike in the product.
Yeah.
Now, you could make an argument that if you take part in that, MVP buyback program and you open a decent amount of that wax, there's some value there. They've done something to incentivize it. And honestly, I like this stuff. I like an update, the obviously the MLB debut. I like these chases. They even did this for WWE this year.
Yeah.
We happen to have a Tiffany Stratton refractor.
We did.
We got like $40. We're just going to buy whatnot inventory. We're like, oh, we should take that in.
We'll turn this into a giveaway.
So the concept is great, but to miss out on one of the biggest stories in baseball this year, I just don't understand how that happens. I feel like starting catchers should be in the product.
One would think. Now, it may be something weird, and I have no idea if this is the case.
This is through the grapevine. If you're watching this a month later and we're wrong, just give us a break, all right?
Yeah. It may be something as simple as Cal Raleigh chose not to pay his MLBPA dues, and he's not on the list. Like, that's weird to me because he has cards and other products. But yeah, if he's not on this checklist, which is what it seems like, it seems like a big oversight. Now, would I love to see Cal Raleigh win an MVP? Yeah. That would be fantastic. I just don't think he's going to. Now, you do have some chases on the NL side. Like, that's a little more open. Ohtani's obviously in the lead, but Pete Crow Armstrong is right there. I don't think Acuna is going to get there, but man, since he's come back, he has been on an absolute tear, which has surprised the heck out of me. So there's options in the NL that you can still go. One of the things I've done the last few years, and it hasn't worked out because the runaway winners have been runaway winners. But like a couple years ago when there was a chance that Mookie could
I remember that,
win that MVP, it was fun to just go buy Mookie base chromes for 50 cents or $1 and stick them back and hope that you get 20 extra, 40 extra money. And it was an easy bet to make. It was cheap.
Yeah, because you can get $1 back out of that.
Yeah,
if you have to. I think it's going to be a little harder. The more time that lapses that they've had this program, the more people that know about it, the more people that realize, oh, it really is as simple as walking into an LCS honor in the program and turning it in. But yeah, it could be interesting. Huge oversight. Still a cool product. I like Topps Chrome. It's a little bit pricier than the value that's there. However, with that chase, it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities where you
it does make retail
not
functional.
Get crushed as bad
it
as
makes retail functional.
That's true. All right. One more topic to discuss before we jump into the value box.
We told you there was a lot of news this week.
Rookie royalty drops.
WNBA, if you don't know what the product was.
Yeah, so there were just a few cards in the box, one auto guaranteed, 2 cards in the box, one auto guaranteed to be either Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. 1,500 boxes released. Released at Dutch auction, starting at $30K, at which several people purchased boxes.
I'm sure a few did. If you're watching this and you were that person,
they're not watching us if they're that person.
Get help. That's absolutely moronic.
Yeah.
The product reached its floor. Now, if you're not sure what a Dutch auction is, this is how it works. Product releases, the full allocation of the product. They say, we're starting it here, and every few minutes, the price will drop. This started at $30K with a ceiling at $30K, a basement at $3,000. Lots of the product got bought at $3,000. I would venture to guess over 50% of the product got bought between $5K and the floor. I know a lot of people who bought it at the $3 to $4K range.
Yeah.
The fact that Panini had the audacity to start this at $30,000 is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Especially when 50% of the autos in the boxes are somebody who literally doesn't have a market right now, who has been surpassed by Camila Cardoso and Cam Brink and all these other players in the WNBA rookie market. Mind-blowing to me. I know when the product released, everything was overnighted after that auction, so everybody had the boxes.
Oh, it's a race to try to get your money back.
Yeah, everybody had the product the next day, and you texted me and went, "What is Panini doing with these? All these cards are being hit." Yeah, all the boxes got opened. Like there were only 1,500 of them. They all got opened for the most part. And what's
it's
crazy,
immediately saturating the market with super high-end Caitlin.
Yeah, that people are trying to get 20, 30K a signature for.
Now, I've got to say something about like the logo lady.
Oh yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Rookie of the Year inscription is hit, right? Massive card. On that card on the back, we're used to the runaround with Panini, not from a specific game or event. This one's not associated with a player.
Yeah.
It's not even player associated.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, just they bought it off the rack.
You and I went to Dick's Sporting Goods, bought a jersey, cut out the logo, lady, but it's no different. And they're demanding $30,000 on this box.
Well, they tried. They didn't get it for the most part.
They couldn't even. Now that's a good sign. They'll quit making stupid crap like Mercury and this if y'all quit buying it at 30 and 15K. That's how that works. If people quit spending that kind of money on it, they won't keep losing money on a product, which, by the way, they didn't lose money.
No.
They raked money in on this. But they will not produce things that people won't buy. But as long as we're dumb enough to spend $30K on that box, why would they not keep doing it?
No, for sure.
So what happens? So we have immaculate patches. We've got kabooms that are out in the market. Downtowns, all this type of stuff. What happens when those products are released in their like traditional SKUs?
Well, some of those really high-end products won't be released. Like we're not going to get a dedicated, flawless WNBA product. At least not with Caitlin's rookie year.
Are you sure?
We're already halfway through the second season, and I don't believe there's any plans for anything like that. We're not going to get immaculate WNBA. Doing a whole print run on something like that would not be cost effective because there's just not going to be that market. Now, if Panini's smart, they're going to start getting 2025 product out soon.
Yeah.
Because Paige Becker's market is exploding.
Yeah. Not a $30,000 box.
No, it should have been a $3,000 to $5,000 box.
So what's cool is we've got a couple more weeks till the National. We'll see a lot of that. I bet we see quite a spray of values in those showcases for that.
Oh,
especially
for sure.
if some people got into those boxes at $3K. They're going to be more than happy making $10K off of that.
I don't know. I've seen a few guys that got in there at $3K to $4K that are still wanting $25K to $30K for their of 50 Caitlin Clark autos.
Keywords.
Still wanting.
Yeah,
and they're going to keep wanting that. And a lot of them have the delusion that they're just going to take it to the National and get that.
Do people not realize, like on a product like this where there's these guaranteed hits, like you have a 50% shot of hitting this Caitlin auto, the scarcity piece that comes into play here?
I mean, to an extent it is, but if you think about it, there's 750 new
Sure.
Caitlin autos, 750 new Angel Reese autos that nobody really wants. And the demand for Caitlin stuff, like, again, I can't emphasize enough. We've talked about this ad nauseum, and I will keep talking about it because I don't think some of you guys understand it. The demand for Caitlin Clark stuff is higher than any other athlete out there right now, regardless of men's, women's, regardless of the sport. And it's not close. Like, go look up just a base Caitlin Clark Prism card from this year. And in the last week, you will see 3,000 sales of the card at $20 a crack. Yeah. Like, her demand is so high right now that I don't think we're going to run into a supply-demand issue. I do think we're going to run into what we're seeing right now, which is at a certain point, the market isn't going to bear that dollar ask for Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Like, I can get a traditional pack-pulled of 99 Caitlin Clark auto out of Prism for $6,000 to $8,000, and somebody wants the of 99 Immaculate, they want 25 for it at a royalty, I'm going to go ahead and grab that Prism auto.
Yeah. I don't think this will be the last product Panini does this with as they are sunsetting.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of these little cash grabs anywhere where they've got the opportunity to do it. But let's move over to the value box after all that news, man. Long episode. We'll have to try to move through this quickly, but when we were discussing what we wanted to talk about for the value box, I was telling Gary that the one conversation and the one question, especially when I'm live on TikTok, shipping eBay orders and all that we keep getting asked over and over and over is, how do you source? How do you keep buying? How do you find constant inventory? Obviously, I have a filter for me where I'm looking for low end and high end and showcase. I wouldn't say high end. The real high end people would be like, I've been to your showcase, bro. That's not high end.
Yeah.
The $200 to $500 range is where
everything's
I really try to
relative.
play. For Gary, now that we're doing Whatnot, you're kind of spending a little more time looking into the lower end stuff as well, and not just showcase stuff. But how do we source? Where do we find it? How do we buy? Now, in the past, you've heard us talk about like negotiating at a table, and we've got our own business metrics, and I don't ever go over this percentage. And for some of you, that's a really polarizing conversation. We want to zoom out a little bit and just think about the whole approach, even approaching these conversations. How much time should it take and how much work should it be to source cards?
That's what I was getting ready to say.
And so we're kind of taking that different angle in here with this, and not just when I'm at a show and somebody says, well, you do this. That's not this conversation. We're talking about finding inventory and how do Gary and I keep doing that in a way where we do it for a living. So as we jump into that, a few different categories we want to hit. The first one, where do we source? So like, where do you find the inventory you have to sell at shows, to sell on eBay, to do a garage sale with your cards, whatever you're going to do. So let's jump into that one first.
Yeah, and I think that prefacing all of this is what Jason just said. This is real work. This is time. It is energy. It is hours away from your family. You're not going to be able to regularly source large amounts of product if you're not willing to work. Fair?
Yeah, it takes – people don't factor in how much time it's going to take. I think they think you just do a search and there it is and you go pick it up.
Well, and I think people think that, well, these guys have a podcast, so it just walks to them. That's not how it works. We talk about where to source in big buckets. You can source online. You can source through local marketplaces like Facebook Marketplace and Mercari and places like that. And then you can source in person. That's everything from garage sales to card shows to antique malls, LCSs. Those are the big buckets where you can source. In my opinion, the reality of it is that if you're really wanting to do this, you're going to be using all of those. You're going to find things that work better for you, but you never want to neglect any of those. At least one day, and I know Jason does it usually at least one day, I go to all three of the LCSs in our area that are people that I do a lot of business with. That are my
give
friends.
them a shout out. Show them a little love.
Father and Son in Powell.
Shout out.
Newhart Cards up in Delaware.
Shout out.
Lock City over in Hilliard.
Shout out.
Yeah, so
Give some love.
those are the 3 that I go to every week. The owners are my friends. They know when I walk in, I'm going to spend money. And if there's stuff there that works for me, it works well for both of us. I tend to take a lot of stuff they've had for a while off their hands because I see a bigger variety of people at shows than they do with the 70% of the same regulars that come in every week. Right. Jason has had a lot of success utilizing like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Those are all places that I search and I do a little bit on, but that's not my main thing. And then I personally, Jason, his brain doesn't comprehend this, although he's starting to get there as he's doing more shows.
I'm just a real stupid person.
If I have a show,
this came across real condescending.
It did. If I have a show on Saturday that I'm set up at, there's about a 90% chance that the next day on Sunday, if there's a show within 3 hours of the house, I'm going there to walk and buy. Jason says, I had a show on Saturday, I'm wiped. Sunday, I'm chilling.
Yes.
And he'll make that up by Facebook Marketplace
but
or
the
wherever.
difference is, too, I know that on Monday all day I'm shipping eBay.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
that's not something you worry about.
I'm not doing that mess.
But I've got that stream of revenue coming in every week.
Yep.
And when eBay's good to you, boy, it's good to you.
Yep.
It's so good. You'll get on a tear where they're loving you in the algorithm. You get 6 straight weeks of that, and you're like, man, I don't even need to set up at a show, And then it changes, and so or the inventory gets stale. When it comes to where to source, 3 questions that I wrote down for me: how far are you willing to drive? How much time are you willing to spend? And how much money should you be spending on inventory? So before you get into, I got to go to the shop, I got to go to the show, I got to go to this. Let's zoom out. This is obviously going to be a more card business focused conversation, right?
Yeah, which is what a lot of our stuff is.
Similar principle for buying for your PC, but I feel like people kind of already have a plan for that. I think this is where people feel lost. When it comes to how far you're willing to drive, if you treat this like a business and you had, let's say that you had a 9-to-5 job and part of your 9-to-5 job was to go and find what you're going to sell. If you don't have anything to sell, you're not going to make any money.
Right.
Would it all of a sudden have a higher priority with how far you're willing to drive? All of a sudden, you go from thinking, well, I'll hit up Facebook Marketplace and see anything within 30 miles of Columbus to, I guess, if I found a collection where I could drive and get back home in the same day, that's realistic. I'm spending money on gas, but if there's enough there and I can get a deal, driving 3 or 4 hours is not that crazy. To some of you, you're like, oh, there's no way I would do that. But if you're the same one saying, I just can't find inventory, I'm saying it's possible you're being a little bit small-minded.
Those things don't compute.
Your approach. So think bigger, draw a bigger circle, make a map. Hey, this is everything within, maybe you can only do 1 hour. Here's everything within an hour. Or maybe it's like, the more I think about it, if I only had to go one day, but it was a full day of driving around, that wouldn't be so bad. Then you could draw a bigger circle. Maybe it's 3 or 4 hours. Maybe you can fly. Maybe you focus on larger collections. We'll talk about quantity in a minute, but how far are you willing to drive? How much time should you spend? Not enough time is spent prioritizing finding the inventory. We've mentioned it. A ton of influencers in the card space mention it. But you really make your money buying right more than you make your money selling. You can't give stuff away at the table. Once you understand some basic selling concepts, whether you're a dealer or whatever, you're going to be fine there. But buying is where the margins are. Buying is where you're going to make your money. And it's hard. That's the point. If it's easy, everybody's doing it. It's hard work. So how much time are you willing to spend on this? I'm a little nervous. We're recording this on a Tuesday. I'm light on inventory. We've got 2 decent-sized shows back to back. Tomorrow, even though I have to do eBay and some other things that I have going on, I've got to make priority for sourcing. We're going to go take a look at a collection together. We're excited about that. That could go well. That could turn into nothing. But I've got to make like a day and a half that I've got to spend on sourcing. Yeah. Or I should expect lower sales this Saturday and to be trying to buy as heavy as I can at the show, which can work. But you have to put aside an appropriate amount of time. The next question, how much cash should you spend? I'll try to speed this up. One of the hardest parts in scaling a card business is projecting cash flow. It is super important. It's often overlooked, and it's why a lot of dealers you see at shows are super stressed out. You're thinking, well, they've got a wad of cash on them behind the table, and they've got $50,000 or $100,000 in cards sitting out in the showcases. What could they possibly be stressed about? Well, they've got to draw cash out of there at some point. to pay for their bills and living. And when that happens, they also still need to have enough cash to buy the right inventory.
Yes.
And that inventory needs to be in the showcases, but they also need to have enough cash that day to buy what walks up at the tables to keep that going. And sometimes people say, well, I've got $1,000. I'm going to go spend $1,000 on inventory. Well, if you have no inventory, that probably works. But if you have a show coming up that week, you need some cash that's going to be there. So thinking ahead, how much cash can I really spend on sourcing? Set it up as a weekly budget. Set it as a monthly or X percentage of what I sell. If your margins are typically 20% net, which is really good, 20% net means you're probably buying around 70%, unless you're into the bigger card market, and then you can do that differently. But you could just set a percentage of your sales aside that this goes right back into inventory every time. I only take this much out for cash because I constantly have to buy. If you want to scale your inventory, you're going to have to spend a little more money each time. So thin margins going in your pocket will help you. Long answer there. Where to source? Bulk buys is the next category.
If you are wanting to sell on eBay the way that Jason sells on eBay, which he gets a lot of questions about, I think a lot of people are intrigued with
don't believe it.
Yeah, they're intrigued with the idea that the cards that they don't care about, somebody else will buy.
Yeah.
They can't get their head wrapped around it, and they're just like, what? But Jason has a proven business model. And not just Jason, he learned it from somebody else and watching and learning from other people.
Shout out to the Dollar Box on YouTube. I do this like every 4 to 6 weeks. That guy is, in my opinion, the GOAT on like having a system in place, running that business, and making it successful. Tons of free resources at the Dollar Box. Shout out.
There you go.
All right.
So the people get intrigued with this idea, though, that you can do that. Jason is able to do that the way that he does it. I'm sure that the Dollar Box guy is the same way because he doesn't buy 10 cards at a time for eBay. He buys 5,000 cards at a time for eBay. Jason mentioned that we're going to look at a collection this week. We've bought collections before, and so many times when you buy a collection from somebody, it's a person that's overwhelmed. They have too much stuff. They just want out. They don't want to take the time to comp 5,000 cards. They go, here's the like 30 or 40 best cards here. Let's work a deal that makes sense on these. And the rest of this is throw in at 10% or at 2 cents a card or whatever it is. Those types of buys are what you're looking for, right? Like that's the goal when you're finding it. When you're bulk buying for a showcase, if you're setting up at shows, it's a little bit different. You're not usually buying 5,000 cards at a time in that situation, but you're buying...
Trying to get a stack.
You're trying to get a stack. Somebody walks up to the table with their case, and when I'm looking through somebody's stuff to buy, I'm trying to find a minimum of 5 cards, ideally 10 to 20, so that I can dollar cost average. I might have to pay a little stronger on one thing in order to get this other stuff. I had a card I bought this weekend that was that way. I paid almost full comps on 3 cards so I could get this one card at the dollar number that I really wanted to be at. So
think about what he just said for a second. He paid up on 3 cards so he could get another card at the value he wanted, which I'm assuming was really good margin on that one. But sometimes you're going to have to shift your thinking from individually is the value there, especially on low end.
Yes.
You're going to look at a bulk box and say, 90 Donruss? This is a whole row of it. That's 1,000 of these cards. How much is he going to want per card? You just start spinning out. There's other stuff in the boxes too.
Yeah, breathe.
Be sure that you're there. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's a really good point. Again, though, when you're bulk buying, you hear Jason when he talks about low end liquid all the time. A lot of this stuff he ends up in at less than a dime a card. Yeah, sometimes less than 2 or 3 cents a card if it's really low end stuff.
That sounds crazy until you realize how many cards fit in a monster box.
Yeah. A 5-row with no top loaders is about 1,000 cards per row. Yeah. So 5,000 cards. And he'll buy those monster boxes for $60 a box.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a going rate. Now, do I want to buy 10 of those a week? No, I could never process it. And it's more time than it is value.
Well, you did that one time and it took you 6 months to process it.
I've done it a couple times. Yeah. So
yeah. And the thing is when you do that is that row of 1990 Donruss, 99.9% of it going to go directly into the trash can?
No. It's going to go into a box that becomes a stack of boxes that you later sell as bulk.
Yes.
And you get almost $50 back per box.
Yes, exactly. So,
let me answer that.
Yeah. So that's the point. Like But in that 1990 Donruss, there are 3 or 4 cards that are the reverse negatives that still sell for $3 or $4 a piece. So when you're buying bulk, the goal is quantity is going to make margins better.
And do you know what you said? Margins. I think this is super important. Do you know where your net is, especially on the low end stuff? The reason I'm spending a little more time there, if you're not a low end person, don't worry about it. But there's a lot of people following through the TikTok, eBay content. When you are buying in bulk on the low end, do you know how much money you make when you sell that card for $199? Like, have you really broken down the math? I do. If a card is $199, if I can't list a card for $199 free shipping, it doesn't go up in my store. So there are cards worth less than that.
That's your net around 50 cents, right?
I'm netting around 50 cents before I bought the card. Okay, so some of you are like, why in the world would you do that? Well, when you can buy enough cards to get these in for a nickel or less a piece, and you can incentivize buyers to buy 5 or 10 cards at a time, and you get repeat buyers, those quarters add up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But if 50 cents was your margin, then where do you need to be for the card for it to make sense for you? So in some ways you hear that, you say, oh, then I'll never do it. Or some of you say, that's it, I have to get low end in bulk. I'm never going to the LCS to just pick them out one at a time. Now you can do that, but in a $1 box, I need it to be worth $5.
Yes.
In a 50-cent box, I need it to be worth $3. I've already calculated in my head where those need to be. Now compare the time it would take for you to source 1,000 cards out of the LCS.
Just scanning them one at a time.
One at a time, finding them, right? How many hours are you going to spend in the shop to find that, right? To how long does it take for me to get really good at buying in bulk at shows and finding bulk collections online?
Yeah.
And when you do a comparison of time, there are weeks where inventory's low. I'll be at the LCS. You'll see me digging there. I've been there 6 hours. I've only got 150 cards, and I got to go do it again because I have to have inventory to put in. But if I can buy in bulk, it changes everything. So, one of the things I would encourage is if you're doing that on the low end and you've been spending $50 a week, wait a month, take $200 to the show, try to buy a box, try to buy a whole row, put yourself out there, get rejected, get comfortable with rejection.
Yes.
And when they say, no, I don't have anything like that, you have a cheap business card or a Post-it or a note. And it's, hey, I'm Jason. I buy bulk. Here's my number. Here's my email. I'll drive to you. Email me what you got. I'm always looking for it. So when you buy a collection that has nice stuff and you have that leftover stuff you pitch, I might give you money for that. And I'm telling you, it takes time, but 6 to 12 months later, I get calls.
Yep.
People bring boxes to me now, to the table. Does the podcast help? You said it doesn't. I don't think it's fair to say now that in the last month, I would say that there have been more people because of the podcast that are coming up. So I don't want to ever be like
but it's not
in
like
that.
It's not like the main flow of what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've got to think bigger. Can I take 200? Can I get $500 to go buy low end? Because you're going to get way better margins buying that stuff in bulk. You just got to go.
Well, let's talk about how to have those conversations then when you have those opportunities. Yeah. For me, those opportunities are more live settings at shows. And I'm going to use an example from a couple weeks ago. Jason and I have both been getting better and better at buying and sourcing for our Whatnot stream. I was at a show in Chillicothe, and I bought out one full table, and I bought all of the value slabs from another table. And the conversations that I had were very simple. And the first thing you want to think about is most of the time, the person on the other side of the table that's set up, the seller, hasn't even thought about selling all their stuff at once. Like, it's not a thought that's crossed their mind. The one table I bought out was perfect Whatnot stuff. And it's not stuff that I would probably ever put anywhere other than in my value boxes if I was set up at a show. It was a ton of football and basketball retail color. Values on the stuff was like 140 cards, 130 cards, something like that. They were all already one-touched. Huge bonus for us for Whatnot.
Yeah.
And they were valued anywhere from $2 to $35 or $40.
Yep.
Right? I saw the table and I looked at a few things and his price tags were way off. First off, ignore price tags most of the time if you're thinking about approaching it this way.
If you're going for bulk, yes.
Yes, ignore price tags.
Don't ignore the seller.
Yes, don't ignore the seller, but just in your brain, just disregard
Mentally block that fear out.
Hey, have you ever thought about, this is all really great stuff for our Whatnot stream. And the first question most dealers ask me is, oh, you're on Whatnot? Yeah, so you get to plug yourself a little bit. That's first. But have you thought about selling all this? I'd kind of be interested in all of it. Oh, I hadn't even thought about it. What would you pay for it? Oh, I don't know. It's your stuff. I was looking at a few of these things, and I mean, it seemed like stickers were a little bit all over the place. I'm guessing you probably priced the stuff right when you pulled it or got it. Oh yeah, I know they're wrong. Okay. And then I took 5 minutes and I just looked through the whole table, and we've done this enough now where I kind of have a feel for what stuff's going to sell for in our stream. And I didn't look up comps. I didn't anything. Here's what I think this is all going to sell for. And I looked at the guy, I said, here's what I think it's going to sell for, minus all the fees that Whatnot's going to charge us, minus the margin that we need to make. Here's what I could pay you for it. And he went, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Can I think about it? Sure. I got a whole other show to walk. I'll come back before I leave if that works for you. I came back about an hour later. He hadn't sold a single card yet. Every single card was still on the table. And I said, hey, have you thought about it at all? He said, yeah, I thought about it. Could you get to this number, which was about 35% more than what I offered? And I said, no, unfortunately, I can't. I bumped my offer by $20. I said, that's just the max I could do. And his buddy was there with him, and they were talking. I said, and this was the key, and this was a conversation that worked in this situation, and it's worked in other situations for both parties. Here's the reality for you, sir. How many shows do you set up at? Oh, I set up about once every 2 or 3 months. Okay. You've got a table full of cards that I think are worth this much right now. A month from now, they're not going to be worth that much. There's going to be new products that have come out. You don't have anything that's numbered. It's just all retail color stuff that's going to continue to go down in price. So the next show you set up at, even if you sell a bunch of them, you're going to have to sell them for less than you would have today. Would you rather have the money that I'm offering you right now in hand to try to go buy some other stuff and have some fun, because this isn't what you do for a living? Or would you rather have these retail cards that probably aren't going to hold super strong value? I can sell them really fast. You can't. And he went, I never really thought about it that way. All right, let's do it. Mm-hmm. That was a conversation for that type of a buy. Similar conversation with the slab buy. Hey, this is a bunch of stuff that looks like you've had for a while. Yeah, I really want to get rid of it. Somebody says that to you, your ears should perk up. Hey, we need them for our Whatnot stream. I try to be at X per slab. I'm not even going to look at who the players are. Can we get there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take it.
So let's wade in a little bit with that. Now, Gary and I both have we have a fairly extensive sales background.
Yeah. And very different approaches.
Very different personalities when we approach it. Even though we joke with each other with those exact same jokes, very different approach to those things. So you've got to be very mindful that you may approach somebody that's starting, consider, oh, this guy's trying to buy bulk at a bulk rate, and they may be very averse to that. So Gary, full speed ahead, he's going to be forward. He's going to map out why he thinks this should happen. To some people, that's going to feel like they're getting shoved, and they're going to kind of, step back. So if that happens, he changes his tone, or he realizes, and that's just when you detach and say, hey, this is your stuff. I don't have to buy it in bulk. Yeah. I just wanted to know if it's something that's available to you. So just be ready to pivot with that. Be ready to move in a different direction, and be okay with them not wanting to do that. Some things that I look for, especially at that price point, is if somebody has a lot of value boxes where they're taped off by price, super clean, super organized, sport, team set, all that. Somebody's already invested so much time, they're probably not interested in selling these out at a bulk rate, because they're doing everything they can, putting all this effort into supplies and bags to maximize the value. Probably not the right fit. The ones that I like to see are 4 showcases, 3 tables, and then 1 box that looks super random, like a 1 2-row box or a 4-row.
Kind of like our tables.
Well, kind of like ours, because they bought the collection. These things are left. They're just processing it, trying to get some value out. Hey, you have any interest in moving the whole box? And I, just like you, I tell them right away, looking for Whatnot inventory. That kind of subliminally presents the idea that you're going to want to buy these at margin. Do I want to sell these at margin in bulk? Right? But always entertain the conversation. And I can't tell you, the first 6 months that I shipped cards out, every single shipment had a business card where they could sell cards to me. You just keep putting yourself out there, letting people know that you're interested, that you're buying, what you're doing. Eventually, over time, with that consistency, you're going to have people that reach out to you. This last month has been the first time I've been I don't know, I can't buy everything that's coming to me.
Yeah.
And I know some of you are like, yes, that sounds like that has not been the norm. And I know this. Next month, there may be none of this.
Right.
So that's where timing out your cash, how much can you spend? But the first thing I would say is consider bulk as an option or multi-quantity orders to get your margins right. We have more happy buyer and seller agreements when there's a stack of cards or a box of cards compared to an individual card.
And quickly on this point before we move to the last part of the value box here, one thing that I think you bring a lot of knowledge and experience in that I don't, Jason buys a lot more in person outside of shows than I do. What do you find to be the most, is finding the motivation of the seller a big part of that process for you?
Oh, we have a tendency, card dealers are cocky.
We are. Yeah.
Card dealers are arrogant. They're also have a tendency to be very insecure. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a business. People don't understand there is good money in it in time with a lot of work. But it's almost like a lot of identity is tied to your brand, right? You are the sole proprietor. This is your business and that. And the thing that gets missed out on because it's the 50th collection you've tried to buy in the last 3 months is that there's a person on the other side of the table. There's a person at their home. There's a person meeting you in the parking lot with their trunk full of cards. And they don't care that this is the 50th one of these that you've done. They don't care that you need inventory. They don't care what margins you need to have. So if you know nothing about them and you're not even interested, don't expect that to be a deal that's going to go very well for you if there's any level of negotiation. Why are you wanting to sell this? Well, these are my kids, and we've been cleaning out the house, and he told me he's just not interested in them anymore. This sounds very elementary, but, so you're saying you're cleaning the house out and you want to get rid of it. Now, I just repeated exactly what they said. What does that communicate? I'm listening to the words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
This isn't all about me. I think that's super important. The secret sauce is I actually try to be really nice to people.
Yeah.
Gary has seen me carry on conversations for 10 minutes after a deal went very south. Like it was clearly not going to happen. And then sometimes they come back 2 months later.
Yeah.
Because you're a decent human being to them. So I just think it's super important to ask them, why are they moving out of it? Discover, is their motivation really there? Or are they just trying to feel out, hey, I was just trying to see what it's worth. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. When that happens, I make a middle note. I'm not spending a ton of time there. Well, if you're just trying to get a feel for it, you just want me to throw a number at you, or do you have something in mind already? Oh, well, I'm thinking it's worth this. Okay, no worries. Could you show me a few of the cards you think carry the bulk of that value? They either have them and they're ready to play ball, or they have no clue and they're going to open the floor back up to you to use your expertise and experience to help them with that. So it takes more time. I think if you're going to go outside of shows, you don't get that quick. Like there's an expectation if somebody comes to the table, hey, this dealer's going to give me 5 minutes to buy or sell, right? But if somebody has something at their home for sale, I know that this is going to take some time. I actually want to get to know the person a little bit, but that's natural for me with my personality.
Yeah.
If you're wildly introverted and it's nothing but uncomfortable, the thought of going to someone's home, in their home, looking at their collectibles, then maybe you want to try to do a lot of this via text or call or email ahead of time, just to kind of have that set up. But I think the other thing you need to think through when you're looking at in-person collections is, do you have a way to process everything that you'll buy? I do think this is a bit of a superpower for me, but it's also my Achilles heel right now. I have a way to sell things from $5,000 a piece to $2, right? And a lot of those $1 cards do sell for $2 because people know that they have to pay shipping, right? So $1.99 free shipping. When I look at a collection, I have all these different buckets. I'm like, hey, this could be for my showcase. This could be a nice card, but it's weird, so it should go on eBay. This is something that maybe our business would be interested in buying for whatnot, or this is low-end eBay stuff, and if it isn't in that category, I can bulk it up and move it. Have you thought through that, all the potential for revenue and how you'd process everything?
Which leads to niching down.
Yep.
Which I actually want you to touch on that. I know that you just talked about this, but it's something that you do a much better job than I do at, because my philosophy is very simple. I'll buy damn near anything that makes sense.
Yeah, the making sense is what you're not willing to qualify, but I think will matter at some point for you to qualify.
Yeah.
I think if Gary and I had 50 slabs up in front of us and they were all familiar stars in a good grade, let's just call them all 10s. I think 95% of the cards we're both going to say, yep, I want that. The reality is, especially if you set up at a show, learning what to say no to will probably benefit you more than trying to convince yourself to get in right and say yes on everything because I need inventory, I need inventory, I need inventory. The big mental shift I would encourage you to make is go from thinking I need inventory to, man, I really need the right inventory. And for each person, that's different. Gary does not mess with ultra-modern basketball, aside from a superstar or the one or two main rookies. And guess what? That's exactly how I approach buying Bowman First autos. I do not have an interest in investing the proper amount of time to stay up with that volatile market. What does that mean? I acknowledge that I am okay missing out on some grand slam prospect slabs that will 4X in the next week because they're in AAA and somebody just got injured and there's a good chance they're called up. Gary loves that stuff. He's in there. Somebody came up with a binder full of Bowman slabs, and it was so refreshing to me to just be like, hey, awesome stuff. Gary's the guy. Take it over to him. In the low-end market, I've started to learn where I excel. With vintage, I'm familiar with, and this is going to sound a little goofy, I'm real familiar with 70 through 77.
Which when
I
the
can
exact
get
same
access
thing
to
happens, I send you that
Yep.
stuff. When it hits me, I'm just, hey, take that to Jason. That's his wheelhouse, not mine.
Now, I love vintage, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm any level of expert when we get into 50s baseball. I know big names.
But Black Border 70s?
Yeah, I mean,
you know it.
And so you find areas that make sense for you. Late 90s, early 2000s basketball. I'm fairly familiar with it. You know how? Yeah. From listing and selling tens of thousands of low-end cards from those sets. Yep. So you learn what inserts you don't see and all that. So don't be afraid to niche down and say, I do this. I don't really mess with that. Now, let's say I'm a never basketball person, right? But a Kobe slab walks up that's unique and rare and has 15 comps in the last 3 months. I'm probably interested in buying that.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's going to be spots outside of that space. But when it comes to sourcing, niching down actually helps you. So one of the questions I love to ask is, if you had to pick a decade, right? Like everybody's trying to get a feel for that. Is it mostly the early mid-90s stuff, or are we talking like 2000 to 2010? Why am I asking that? Because it was a dead spot in the hobby that was loaded with major stars, and there's a chance if the collection includes that decade that it's something in my wheelhouse that I'm familiar with that market, and we have buyers for that. So don't be afraid to narrow it down a little bit. I have no interest in learning Pokemon. I'm missing out on one of the
hottest markets on the planet right now.
I read that it was either 93 or 97 out of 100 of the top most submitted cards in the month of June.
Pokemon cards.
Thank you for finishing that sentence as well, Gary. Very helpful. But it is. Oh no, we got to go. We're good.
Man down.
We're good.
Man down.
But it's a market that's huge that I'm just not interested in investing that type of time into becoming an expert in. Am I missing out? Maybe, but I view it as I just revert that energy into the things that I care about, the things that I'm trying to buy right, the things that I'm familiar with. You can ask him. I am an assassin with a 4-row box of stuff that's marked like $5 to $20.
Yeah.
I will find every
card
that's like a 3 or 4X multiplier off the tag.
I'm like, go do your thing, man.
And it's repetition. And I'm so comfortable there. The problem is I don't want to sell that in volume at a show. It's not as fun for me. But
no.
Don't be afraid to niche down and say, this is what I do. Tell your friends that are dealers, this is what I focus on.
And part of that niching down process is knowing when to walk away from a deal. Not every customer is right for every seller, and not every seller is right for every buyer. We had a situation this weekend. Gentleman had an Aaron Judge rookie. It was a nice card. It was
Bowman's best rookie auto.
Was it Bowman's best or Sterling?
Bowman's best.
Bowman's best. It was a Bowman's best rookie auto. It's a PSA 9. Landscape card. He wanted $1,000 for it. And we were like, okay, well, let's take a look, because we know Aaron Judge we were interested in the card. His market's hot right now.
Well, first off, back up a second. Dude walks up.
Oh, he was carrying a dog.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't want to incriminate. I don't know who's watching. I don't know who else involved anymore. People know who we are at these shows now, so I can't hide like I used to, blend in with all the other fat bearded men at card shows.
So
there's a lot more accountability now. But the guy walks up, and there was just like this era of, you're not going to believe what I'm about to put in your hands that you're going to overpay for.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, it wasn't smug, but he was trying to sell it, right?
Yeah.
First night says, wow, really cool card. I said, did you just get here? And he said, no, I've been here all day. And I'm like, okay, we're the last table. You're stopping out with this card.
Yeah.
And no one has been. So it's just a red flag, but still a Judge rookie auto, right? Yeah. In a slab, the right slab. So
he's been hearing the same thing from dealers all day.
We would guess.
That if I can't fathom a world where he hasn't, if he's been there all day trying to sell the card.
There was one or two comps years ago, way before Judge was doing what he's doing now, at like $350 to $400.
Yeah. And it's not a $350 to $400 card.
And a PSA 10 in May sold for
$1,300.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the end of May. So well into the season, Judge was hitting $400 at the time, right? So now he's down to a whopping $360.
Oh no.
But he wanted $1,000, and we're looking, and we find what we find, and we start having the conversation with him. And immediately his hackles go up. And you can tell that this is a conversation he's been having all day. And this is the type of situation where I walk away and let Jason handle it, because my personality and that personality type is like oil and water. And I will usually...
It just gets combative.
Yes, it's not great.
So Gary and I talk about the card, because anytime there's something like that where there's not many comps and we're talking a Judge rookie auto, there's some of those cards, even products like Bowman's Best, where they just get really valuable and skyrocket.
Yeah.
And they're just scarce. So scarcity could be good on that card, not. But he's pushing 1,000, and there's a PSA 10 comp this year in season at $1,300.
And so we settle. We think it's a $700 to $800 card tag, which I think most people with that information would come to that point.
You've walked away at this point.
Yes, I've walked away at this point, and I'm just listening in the background as Jason continues the conversation.
So I go up with the slab. I say, man, this is a really lovely card. We'd like to have it, but I don't think it's going to work. Well, you're not even going to count. I said, you sounded pretty confident at $1,000. And obviously there's not much data there. There's only a couple comps, before it was this, but it was like 300 or 400, and there is a PSA 10 sale. So if we offered, it'd be a lot lower than what you're asking, so much so I think it might even be insulting. So I really appreciate you showing us the card, this and that. And he goes, well, here's the problem with comps.
Yeah, I hear all this happening.
I'm completely detached. We're done. I'm wishing him well on his day. Clearly, the whole market has decided that this card is not $1,000, at least in this room at this day. But I said, he's thinking that it may be worth $2,000 or $3,000. He's thinking it's worth more. And the thing with comps is his argument was somebody could shill bid it, and then never pay for it, but now that's the comp, which logically the argument is so it's worth even less than the comps that are out there, which I didn't even go there. And he's like, I mean, this could be worth $1,000, could be worth $1,500. And finally I couldn't take it anymore. I said, why not $2,000? Could be worth $5,000. Like you
Jason, I hear Jason.
He was like going from this because I'm being the nice guy, and he just kept going and pushing. So I was like, why not $2,000? Why not $5,000? Could be worth $1 million.
Jesus, you see that guy standing over there with the white hat on? He organizes the show. I mean, you should talk to him about getting a table, and then you can set it in there and put whatever price tag you want.
Ask whatever you want for it.
That was a time where we had walked away from a sale, and the customer wasn't willing to walk away.
And it wasn't even worth making an offer. And he goes, all right, we think it's worth $800. I said, I didn't say that it's worth $800. I said you could make an argument that's probably the top of the market right now. But again, it's Judge. It's a weird market. You might get $1,500 for it. I'm just saying we're not there, and we're not taking that risk on. He could not believe it.
He goes, well, just give me $800 then. And Jason goes, no, that's what we would tag it at.
Yeah.
We can't pay you that for it.
Yeah. And he snatched it and marched off with Toto from Oz. Yeah, he was out.
That was when we tried to walk away long before. But in bulk buys, what are the signals that you should be like, it's probably time to walk away?
We've mentioned it before. If you're looking through stuff and you see stickers that seem to be over comps, you could just say, hey, how do I say this in a nice way? I try to remember how I word it. Is this stuff you've priced out recently? Is a good way of asking, are you like committed to these comps? And if they're like, I've had them for a little while, I know that they will at least entertain the idea that them being 50% over value on these stickers is a possibility.
Yeah.
So I'll ask that. The other thing is if I'm buying a stack and I'm into a case, we've mentioned this before, and there's really nice cards, like really nice stuff that's hard to get, and they know it, and you can just see it in their eyes. They know that they have really nice stuff. Hey, this is really good stuff. Whenever I get into a case and it's this kind of stuff, a question I usually ask early on is, do you have an idea what percentage you're typically selling these at? Because I see desirable cards in here. I'd love to buy them, but I don't know that I'm going to be like a 90, 95% person. And I even say 90 to 95 just as because that's a line where I know I can't even have the conversation.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's what I need. Hey, this stuff is sweet. I'm probably not the guy for you. But I know there's a lot of people in this room that do pay that percentage on this stuff. That's a time to detach and be okay with it. And sometimes people say that and they're like, well, I don't need it on everything. I said, okay. Do you want to make a stack of the stuff that you maybe have a little more room on? And then I'll try to say, if they are doing that, I think this is really important, especially on bulk buys. In any collection, if somebody actually collected it, there are a handful of cards that they have a perceived value that's higher than comps.
Yeah.
Every time. And a big mental hurdle is going to be for you as a buyer to say, if I'm able to get some more bulk in here or more quantity at the right percentage, is it okay if I pay up to that 90%? Would I be willing to pay 95% on this card if that meant these other 3 cards I'm in at 70% and they're super liquid? And so the math just changes. So maybe you're averaging out at 75% across the board, but you're paying up on 1 or 2 cards. So don't miss out on that opportunity as like a objection. Like in sales, it's like, no, I got to get 90 to 95%. I say, is that on all of them or do you have room on some others? If they pull a few others out, then, hey, you know what? I might be interested at 90% on 1 or 2 of those too. So there's ways to circle back if it's the right stuff that you want. But you got to be okay walking away. With the low end stuff, I'm telling you, once you figure this out, you're going to have to say no way more. I probably have 15,000 cards I've listed that I would not have. That's safe to say, out of 47. Now, that's a significant percentage, but you only learn by trying, you only learn the market by trying stuff. So being more selective will help you. And sometimes you just walk away. It's not the right deal. And, man, the worst thing you could do is convince yourself you should overpay for something.
Oh, for sure. It's better to walk away.
You're going to regret it. You're going to be pulling those out of top loaders like, well, I'm not going to get my money back here. You threw that money at it, and it's going to take you 6 months to get it back.
Well, and the other way that you learn, and this is a point that you brought up, that it's something that I can get better at. It's something that I try to do, but I also know my personality, and it's sometimes hard for me to do. And that's when a deal does go south. Either somebody walks away from it not feeling good about the interaction, or it just didn't work out, and you're thinking to yourself, why didn't that work out? Like, I don't understand. Be self-aware enough and introspective enough to stop and go, what could I have done differently in that situation that either would have A, led to a deal being made, or B, at least us both walking away still okay with the other person and not feeling like one person was trying to take advantage of the other.
Yeah.
What could I have done differently, right?
Yeah. I think it's really important to genuinely appreciate somebody taking the time to bring inventory to your table, even if it doesn't happen. They didn't have to do that. Nobody owes you inventory because you set up at a show. Nobody owes you the opportunity to buy their collection. If you don't have people walking up to your table to sell you stuff, and you don't have people selling you collections, your business is done. So there needs to be a genuine appreciation that they did that. But I always try to leave the ball in their court. Hey, if you ever do run into anything that maybe you've had for a little while, or a sport that you're not as interested in a collection buy, I will buy, and I will buy in quantity. I just have to target that percentage. I'd love a chance to buy from you in the future, and I mean that. Or I give them my card. Hey, if you ever have anything like this, find something you have in common, but always leave the ball in their court where they know I don't, there's situations where you don't necessarily want to see somebody again, but if it's a true deal that just doesn't happen, always put the ball in their court because those people have come back to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the very reason. Like I've said no because where I'd have to offer isn't fair to you because you're wanting 90%. They would go sell those downtowns to whoever's buying them at 90%, come back and thank me, and then give me an opportunity on some other stuff. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Those relationships really matter. Man, we got a long episode.
We do. That's all right. Low-end liquid time.
Low-end liquid. I'll make this quick. This is more of a principle-based idea when it comes to sourcing low-end liquid. This particular set junk wax era commemorative Mickey Mantle set. This is the shoebox collection. The shoebox collection was like a subset of some of these other Mickeys that were super cheap, super overprinted, but they have this shoebox collection subset in there. There's just reprints. They're on like a thicker matte card. They have some unique, Mickey Mantle images. But a lot of people overlook this type of stuff because they say, well, the commemorative set only sells for $10. The commemorative set sells for $20, right? Whatever it is. And that's not just this. I don't know exactly what the number is on this set. But if there's 50 cards in there and they're Mickey Mantles and they sell for $2 to $3 a piece,
go buy the set,
go buy the set and break it out and sell it on eBay. So some of that junk wax era stuff will sell for you. Now you got to get the right names. It doesn't mean just everything. I mean, my goodness, nobody's buying the commemorative Cal Ripken Jr. baseball that they made $5 billion of in the 90s for him being in all those consecutive games. If they are, it's going to be $2-3 and you can't even afford to ship it. So this one, 97 shoebox collection Mickey Mantle, but it's more about explore the possibilities, check the comps on some of these commemorative sets. Jordan has a ton of these. You can buy the sets for $40-50. It may have 100 cards in it. You might double your money. So do the math. See the sell-through rate. Are these selling through quickly? This has been more of a slow drip, but this month it's picked up. Baseball season, that always happens. But I'm in those super cheap on bulk. So,
well, and that lesson that you just talked about for low-end liquid is something that we've learned with Whatnot as well. Names matter so much more than you think they do.
Then the product, unless it's brand new, unless it's a really new product.
Yeah, but like in general, you can have the right name on a cool card that will sell for way more than a super short printed, not great name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's low end liquid. Let's go. Last segment of the week, just like every week, the lookout. This week, we're going to highlight Owen Casey of the Chicago Cubs. He was a second-round pick by the Padres back in 2020. He was traded to the Cubs, and since getting there, he has flourished. Kids from Canada, light tower power. He's in AAA Iowa with the Barnstormers. It's the Iowa Cubs. Iowa Barnstormers were the Arena League team that Kurt Warner played for, weren't they? Yeah,
not the same team.
Not the same team. But he's in Iowa right now. So far this year, he is hitting .280 with a .388 on-base percentage and a .556 slugging percentage. That's a .944 OPS with 16 home runs about halfway through the season. He's got a 141 WRC plus. If you're not familiar with what WRC plus, it's weighted runs created. It's basically a stat that 100 is the average for a given league. Anything above that, you're above average. So he's about 40% better than the league average out there, which is really, really strong. Here's where it gets real nutty. Those season stats include a first 2 months that were real rocky. They were real rocky. Since June 1st, he's got a 195 WRC plus. He's hitting 337, 450, 717. Now, here's what's nice about Casey. There's never been a question about power. There's going to be strikeout, okay?
We covered him a year ago, right?
Yeah, we talked about him last year. There's going to be strikeout. It's going to happen with him. He's 28 to 30% for most of his career. He does mitigate it with a lot of walks. He's kind of a true three-outcome player. He's either going to hit for impact, he's going to strike out, or he's going to walk. The on-base percentage is high enough. It's usually 80 to 100 points better than his batting average. Across his career, that means he's walking enough to mitigate the strikeout concerns. One of two things is going to happen for Owen Casey very, very soon. There's not much left for him to prove at AAA. However, the Cubs have a really crowded outfield situation right now between Ian Happ playing well.
Get him out of the division.
Kyle Tucker in a walk year having a career season. Pete Crow Armstrong in the MVP race. Seiya Suzuki DHing and playing outfield when somebody else needs a day off. I would not be shocked if the Cubs decide, hey, we want to try to win this thing this year, if Owen Casey isn't a highlight trade piece at the deadline for an arm. Or he's just one injury away from being up. He's next man up for the Cubs in the outfield.
What product?
2020 Bowman Chrome is his first. They are down from where they were last year. I think there's still room for movement on him. And again, career numbers 278, 384, 483. He's basically a 900 OPS guy, real close to a 900 OPS guy for his career. Plays a decent corner outfield. He's not going to hurt you out there. He's also not going to win a Gold Glove. But at the plate, worst case scenario, he's the strong side of a real good platoon.
Yep.
That's all I got.
All right. Quick reminder, end of a long episode here, but we wanted to spit all the facts that we had and cover as much
Had a
news as
lot of
possible.
news this week.
Yeah, we did have a lot. Don't forget, take advantage tonight, Whatnot, 7 o'clock every Thursday night. We're going to be giving away slabs. All the buyers, 20 giveaways in total. So even if you don't buy anything, you have a chance to grab something there. We are rolling out a midweek Whatnot show during the day, lunchbox lots. Go to our profile at the Ball Card Show. Bookmark those so we can notify you, let you know whenever we are live on that. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
I think you nailed it, man.
The only thing left to say is...
Well, should we want to hit shows that are coming up?
Oh, yeah, we do have a couple.
Xenia this coming weekend on Saturday, and then the following weekend at Eastgate in Cincinnati.
Yep.
But other than that, there's only one thing left to say.
This has been the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collector.
Bye now.
Peace.